If you've got somebody playing a sport that maybe their mother or their dad really aspired at, and they just are expected to do it, but it's not their passion, it's not their love, that's going to be a steep hill to climb.
Correct. That will be a steep hill to climb. And we see that, right? We see this a lot. And if we think about how youth sport is moving, and even high school sports, we see a lot of that, of parents pressuring their children to do things, on both of those ends. But I guess my recommendations would be is to be able to like identify what this individual, like what the child would like to do, and then hopefully flourish, build some of that intrinsic motivation within them.
How do you do that? How do we tell our listeners if they've got their children, they take them to Little League baseball, Little League soccer, track and field, whatever, how do they determine and or instill in them that intrinsic motivation? How do they determine that they either have it or instill in them so they find that fit for them where they can really get some traction in an area?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I feel like I've talked with my sister about this and my friends who have younger children. And I think it's really important, right, where we instill these values in children, right? It's really important that we follow through on our commitments. It's really important that, we try hard things, right? It's really important to do our best, to give our best effort. And that's the most important thing, right? So if you think about a younger child that's beginning sport, and the child learns sport through the coach, right? So the number one reason why kids play sports is because it's fun. The number one reason why kids stop playing sports is because it's not fun anymore. And so I think some of those pressures maybe that are coming from the parent of not doing good enough, or maybe the child feels like they can't meet these expectations of this parent, makes them not want to try, right? And so I think if we can kind of get back to more of those values based of giving your best effort, it really matters. Showing up, right, with a positive attitude, supporting your friends, and just enjoying that experience, those things help to nurture intrinsic motivation.
Because you've got to get a payoff for it, right? Even practice, when you're going and practice, running drills, doing whatever, there's got to be some payoff for it every time you do it, even if it's sacrifice, grinding, grueling. There's got to be some positive experience for the athlete, whether it's a child or college. There's got to be some payoff for it for them to want to come back and do this again and again and again.
Right. And sometimes I think it's getting them to experience that moment, right? So I think with myself and my athletic experience, when I had that first joy of overcoming something that I didn't know that I could do, whether it was a workout or whether it was a time that I was trying to hit. And I think probably all of us can go back to our experiences and think through like, oh, all that hard work paid off, right? Or wow, that was really fun where I didn't know if I could do that and I made it through. And so I think once we get those moments that feel really good, where we feel really proud of the work we've put in, those are the moments that we want to obviously savor and nurture, because that makes it worth it, right?
Yeah, that makes it worth it afterwards. I played football in grade school, junior high, high school, and college. And during two-a-days, for example, I found it really hard to get a payoff.
Yep.
Because the third day of two-a-days, the second practice, now you got nothing but lactic acid in your body, and it's 100 degrees out there, and it's like, oh my God, kill me now. But you find a way to get through it. I'm not sure how, but you do.
Yeah, how do you get through it, right? We have teammates, right? And if you think through those friendships and that togetherness that you had during those really hard days, there's a lot of team cohesion and bonding that happens in that, right? In that push and that struggle. And then also it's that delayed gratification where that moment of the football game is going to come, and all of the energy that's going to come with that. And so more of that long-term goal, right? So being able to understand what I'm doing right now and what I'm committing to right now for the benefit of what will be coming, right? And how happy you will be, whatever. It's the first game of the season or it's the championship game where you can step in ready to play, knowing that you did everything you could to prepare your mind and body for that moment.
You said a really important word in terms of your teammates, because when I look back on it now and people that I've talked to, it's always been that band of brothers sort of feeling. You're in it together. We're going to get through this together. I'm not going to let my teammate down. He's not going to let me down. If you're laying on your back, you look up and there's a hand there to get you up. You just feel like there's that sense of acceptance that's so important. That's powerful currency for those times when the band's not playing, the lights aren't shining, the crowd's not yelling, but there is that currency you get from the fellowship, the camaraderie of being in the team together, and that's important to your performance motivation.
Yeah. Yep. And I would say that real champions love that process, right? So the fun and the lights and the showtime is really important, but the best of the best athletes really enjoy the training to some extent, right? Like we understand it's hard, it's difficult, but we take at least some joy in like knowing we're pushing ourselves, we're improving ourselves, we're learning at mastering these skills, right? So again, if we think about just motivationally, what I'm focused on to improve myself, to master these things, those things hopefully would bring some enjoyment or engagement into what you're doing, right? You have to love that process. And I think anyone who has had success like understands that grind pays off in the end. And so you're able to withstand and sacrifice the things that you have to in order to get to that end goal.
What would you say to parents that have these kids in athletics, which I think are great? I was in athletics all of my life and we didn't have a lot of money. So that was currency. That was our entertainment. That was what I was able to do. And I was the family's entertainment because they could go to the games for free. And there was a lot of different payoffs for it. But what do you say to these parents about how to find the balance of being a positive motivational force, yet stopping short of being like a stage mom? Because I've seen so many of my friends' dads as I was growing up put so much pressure on the kid at practices or games that the kid was absolutely miserable in fear that they were going to mess up, screw up, not do well enough, and they were going to have to be accountable to their parent after the fact. That ruined it. I saw it ruin it for so many of them. What do you say to parents about how to find that balance to get the best performance out of a child so they do enjoy it and have peak performance at the same time?
Yeah, and I understand the struggle of wanting your child involved, but also wanting them to give their best effort, all of these things. And I would say, one, in general, I completely agree with you in terms of all of the important life skills that sport teaches, right? Like sport is wonderful. You get to push yourself, accomplish different things. You learn teamwork, you build friendships, let alone have lifestyle habits, right? And so I think even if I just take a step back and zoom out a little bit, it's really important for young kids to be involved in these activities, just for the lifelong healthy habits that can be instilled in having a good routine, eating healthy, hydrating your body. All of those things are really important. And so if I were to give advice to parents, it would definitely be to either dive in and read some books on how to best support your child in these ways, or also the most important thing is that back to kind of that best effort, right? And encouraging them I'll step back. So I think one of the things that we're seeing with children these days is they're not allowed to fail, right? And parents don't want their children to fail. They want them to be superstars. They don't want them to suffer in any type of way, meaning like have to struggle through things, right? We don't like that. We don't like struggle in general as human beings, right? We don't like to have to wrestle with things or not feel like we're good at something, and have to work at that skill set. But unfortunately, as you and I both know, like in anything that is worth accomplishing takes struggle and effort, right? And some days it's really hard. And some days we don't know if we can do it or not, right? Am I even any good at this? I don't know. And I think those are normal questions to have. But again, I think something that we need to work on instilling in our young children is we're going to fail. We're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. But it's really important that we get up and try again, right? And so as a parent, my expectation is for you is that you do your best. You're kind to your teammates. You're a supportive teammate. You bring a really good positive attitude every day. And even just expressing to your child, I love watching you play this sport. I love watching you practice. I love watching you work hard. So you're giving that feedback of that versus maybe this child feels like I'm never meeting my parents' expectations. My parents aren't proud of me. They just want me to be the best on the team, which maybe some parents do. And I would challenge them of like, that's not important right now for their development, right? You want them to enjoy this experience, work at that skill, work at building these sports skills, whatever sport it is. But really, the most important thing is giving your best effort